Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast, Talking, where we do lots of talking. Sorry about the very boring blank background. My studio is in the midst of being rebuilt. And I'm also sorry if you're just listening because I'm talking about my environment, and that's bad audio content. That being said, I am very excited about this episode of my podcast because I sat down with one of my favorite friends. He's my oldest friend, not as in like I've known him the longest. He's literally my oldest friend. He's 70-something. His name's Paul Ryden. He's an amazing actor. We've used him in so much of our content.
Paul
has joined the meeting.
Like, if you're familiar with any of our big hit videos, you know who I'm talking about. But he's also in lots of big TV shows and movies, and he's such a swell guy.
Uncle Paul! Hey!
I went to his house, his new house that he just bought to die in, I guess.
This is incredible.
Never had a backyard, now we got like three.
There's no way you can afford this. Just being newscaster number 2 all these
Well,
years on all
you'd be
the
surprised. Those little 13-cent residual checks add up.
This guy has stories for days, which is why he just wrote a book that we'll talk about.
I've even gotten checks for literally zero. I was on Stranger Things. I've gotten a couple of checks for
Wait.
zero. I mean, I don't even know what the point is.
They lost money mailing that to you.
I know. Well, maybe that's why they're going
Wait.
over here.
Paul happens to be a savant with dates, and I challenged him on that. Like, the guy always remembers the date. When we talk about anything, he knows the year, sometimes the month, sometimes the day, and it's amazing. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy getting to know Paul a little bit. As always, we're sponsored. We will be sponsored one day by... let's get into it. First off, thank you for inviting yourself onto my podcast.
Hey, you got to do something to plug the book.
We're just going to go there already?
Well, we're going to go there. The whole thing is going to be about that, isn't it?
It should be, because the whole thing is about, the book is about you.
Yeah.
And that's what this podcast is about.
Because an agent once told me about this. She said she liked the style and all that other stuff,
Yep.
but she said it sounds too much like an autobiography of somebody that nobody's ever heard of. I said, well, that's the point. It's called I Never Heard of Me Either. Seen here. And
This might be my favorite book title and cover of all time.
I like it. Thank you.
I noticed you didn't ask me to endorse the back of it. I mean, you've got
never
Ernie
will.
Johnson,
Yeah.
Pat Hughes. Who cares?
Well, they're big names. I should have
Maybe.
I should have done that. Come to think of it.
No, I'm
Maybe in the
kidding.
second printing.
I'm kidding. when Tyler and I wrote a book years ago,
I remember that
I'm
book.
sure you've read it. It was
I started it.
okay. It was a
Stuff to know about stuff.
Yeah, stuff you need to know about stuff. We're still waiting to earn back our what do you call it? What the money we got up front?
Royalties?
No, we got
Oh,
an
the
advance. We haven't quite
Really?
gotten that back. Yeah, I think we may have oversold ourselves as authors, but I do remember we got an endorsement on the back from Jeff Foxworthy.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what it said, but I know that in the endorsement he made it clear that he hadn't read it yet.
Oh.
I think the endorsement was like, "I can't wait to read this."
Yeah, that was so you actually had somebody publish it for you. See, I took this to a couple of agents and they couldn't. They said there's too many memoirs.
Well, you waited
stacked
too
up.
late.
No, there's too many memoirs stacked up on their desk.
Yeah.
They can't sell them
Right
unless you
now.
have a big following. And I don't have a big following. I've got 89 followers on Twitter. X. Sorry.
Well, I think there's such a timing element. I probably couldn't at all, but I definitely couldn't easily get a publisher right now. But had I gone after one, or when we did go after one, right after a conference call in real life,
Yeah.
it was easy.
Right.
And so you probably could have then.
Well, I don't know, because there was no name recognition. I've been just living just on the outside of the spotlight,
Yeah.
enough to make life interesting and have a lot of interesting experiences, which is why I wrote the book.
But you should know, we often get specific requests for you
yeah,
in
so
our
I hear.
videos.
That's funny.
I mean, the way it works is typically when we're doing work for a brand, we write the script and then we do auditions and we cast the roles. But there are a lot of instances where the client says, "We want that old guy from the conference call video."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "That's going to cost you."
Yeah, sure. I am so glad to be. I'm delighted to be your go-to old guy. I tell people all the time, I'm Tripp and Tyler's
But it's
go-to
not
old guy.
it's not because you're old. It's because of the thing that I noticed about you the very first time we worked together. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I do. I remember it was a video over at North Point.
Yep.
And I don't remember what the video was. Oh, that was the
Passing.
Passing. Yeah.
We did an instructional video
right on how to pass
on
each
how
other.
to pass people when you're walking by. And I was like, I want this to feel like some sort of corporate training video.
Today, we will be looking at a common situation encountered by all singles, passing. Let's take a look.
So we're making this video, this instructional video on how to properly pass another person.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want this to feel like a true corporate training video. And I need the person to be very serious, but obviously, I needed someone like Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
And Dave Blakesley, there's no chance Dave's watching this, but Dave Blakely was like, there's a guy that we know,
guy.
and he's exactly what you're looking for. Sure. He's like an actual news personality. He's done tons of anchoring. He's the guy. And I said, sure. And you came in and just nailed it. Ear prompter in, like any good 1970s news personality would do. Ear prompter. And it was so hilarious. And everyone who's ever watched our content has seen that in you, because you have this essence of, how would you describe it?
I'd say there's a difference between silly and funny.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a big,
Absolutely.
huge thing that really irks me when I see people trying to be funny and they're really kind of silly.
Yep.
In fact, I just saw an example of that last night. I can't remember what it was.
Do you know Eric Goins?
No.
Actor in town. I'm sure you've worked with him. Eric and Lauren, big improv people. I took his improv class years ago, and I still remember. I don't know if he stole this or if it is his, but thank you, Eric. He said, "Comedy plus comedy is silly." So the reason in an improv sketch you try to set up a very real scene, and the reason you try to emote the way your character really would,
Right.
is because when there's some element of truth or seriousness, then the jokes are actually funny, right?
Yeah.
And I thought about that so many times when we're making videos. It's like, yeah, you put, you take a real scene, like a real business meeting, and you add one dose of absurdity, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And that is what you're so good at.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're so good at being the straight funny guy.
Well,
I think Leslie Nielsen's not even. I think you've got a little of that in you. You could have been the star of Airplane. You know you could have nailed that.
I was too young.
But you could have. You could now.
Yeah.
But you know who you remind me of too, who I just absolutely love?
Bryan Cranston.
No,
Tom Brokaw.
you're not that good. No offense. Bryan Cranston's better
He's
than
pretty
you.
good.
Fred Willard.
Oh, yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Fred Willard.
Yeah, he was hilarious. I loved him in, well, just about anything he did. From
Yeah.
Fernwood Tonight. You probably don't remember. No, Fernwood Tonight was on the air when you were being born. It was like, you were born in 79. It was like 70.
You remember when I was born?
78. Well, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't remember.
The other thing
from
I love
being
about
there.
you, Paul, and I'm going to let you talk, but people need to know you at least a little bit as much as I know you. You are a savant with dates. So, like, every time I've been around you and someone has had a story about anything, you're like, oh, that was January 2003. You just threw out, you were born in 79. Like,
Yeah. Well,
I don't know when I was born. I have to think about it.
well,
for
I'm
a
always
second.
amazed that people don't remember things.
Do you have photographic memory?
No.
Or is there a
well,
version
no.
of that that's like photographic but it's not visual? Like you just remember
Sort
dates
of.
and numbers?
There's a thing about dates, and my wife always kids me about this, that when it comes to dates, I kind of picture them in my head kind of like a game board, a board game, like a game of life or something where there's a
Monopoly.
little path. Well, sort of
Chutes and
Monopoly.
ladders.
Well, not Monopoly because it's just a square,
Okay.
but there was another one like Candyland.
Okay.
For instance, that goes all over the place, right? Well, I picture it, the zeros go to the 20s, the 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
50s, and I picture it all the way around, and so I can visually remember dates that way.
makes no sense.
Well, I'd have to.
That doesn't help me understand how you think.
I'm a visual learner. and I have to see it even in my
Okay,
head.
let me give you a test then.
All right.
My friends and I, some of them you know, Tyler,
Yeah.
we have a weekly trivia contest on Marco Polo. And yesterday, the final round was name as many Monopoly spaces as you can. Doesn't have to be in order. Name as many as you can. Can you do that?
I was not a big Monopoly fan, but I would say Park Avenue.
Okay. All right. Let me tell you.
Did I answer it wrong?
So that was Tyler's very first answer. And I should go back and explain. The rule was as soon as you get one wrong, none of your answers after that count.
Oh.
So Tyler was like, I'll admit I don't know many, just like you. And then he goes, but, Park Avenue.
Park Avenue.
That's not one.
It's not?
It's Park Place. Boardwalk and Park
What did I
Place.
say?
Park Avenue.
No, I said Park Place. I'm pretty sure.
Park Avenue? I got freaking Marvin's Gardens, but I didn't get Park Place. Oh.
And, yeah, this is
Well,
great.
the thing about dates, during COVID, I had this idea where I think I'll just memorize the birth dates of all the presidents. So I did. And I'm amazed at how many people, obviously they're not going to remember dates.
Do you
that
still
way.
remember them?
Yeah, I'm a little rusty, but
Okay.
give me one. I'll see if I can remember.
Barack Obama.
That's August 4th, 1961.
FDR.
January 30th, 1872.
George Washington.
February 22nd, 1732.
I guess everyone should know that. Isn't that when we celebrate President's Day?
Well, that's the thing about President's Day. I was born on a president's birthday, February 12th, Lincoln's birthday.
Okay.
So I was born on a President's Day, and it used to be that I would get off of school on Lincoln's birthday. We had that as a holiday. And then when I got to college, they came up with President's Day and combined Washington and Lincoln, and then I didn't get it off anymore. I didn't get my birthday off anymore. And my wife still kids me about the fact that I want my day off on my birthday. I don't want to work on my birthday.
Am I dumb? Is President's Day February 22nd?
It's like the third weekend of third Monday
Forget
of
I said
February
that.
or something.
JFK.
May 29th, 1917. You can check that.
George Bush Sr.
He's an interesting one. June 12th, 1924. Got 6/12.
Millard
24.
Fillmore.
January 7th, 1800. He was our first president.
You don't
born
know
in the
this. You're making this up.
No, I'm not. Check it. Millard Fillmore, January 7th.
Hey, Zach,
1800.
fact check that. Oh, you don't have a phone. We're recording
Oh,
on
here.
phones. Okay, I'll check it.
All right. January 7th, 1800. Go ahead.
What is Millard
You
Fillmore's
gotta
birthday?
You got to say, "Hey Siri."
No, I don't. You can hold down the button. Did you know that?
Of course not.
January 7th, 1800.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You didn't know you could hold this down to Siri? Maybe our best time together was when we were at that Chick-fil-A event.
Yeah, in Long
10
Beach.
years ago?
No, 2009.
This is what I'm talking about.
Well, that one I looked up last night because I couldn't remember.
And we were cracking up. I think it started because I was learning all the things that you don't know how to do with technology.
Yeah, and I consider myself fairly tech savvy, for people my age. I mean, I'm not like an idiot that has to have one of those cricket phones
you are 71.
Yeah.
And you do use Siri, so I'll give you
Yeah,
that credit.
yeah.
But, you don't, if you're somewhere and you don't want to have to say, hey, Siri, of course, why would you not want to say that if you're going to talk anyway?
True.
But you just hold down this button.
Yeah, no, I remember on that trip, it was funny because you introduced me to Twitter at that point. And so
Wow.
I thought, okay, I'll get on Twitter. I don't know why or what the purpose is, but I had one follower on Twitter, and that was you. And so I'd say things like,
say hi?
I'd type in, hey, Tripp, I'm on the shuttle bus. I thought, why don't I just call you? Just tell you. That was the stupidest. And now I've got 89 followers
Okay.
for some reason.
You might as well
You're
still
not
tell people
one-
you're on the shuttle.
You're not one
I
of
don't
them.
follow
I
you?
just checked. You're not on there anymore. You must have unsubscribed.
I just know I don't pay much attention to Twitter, and I don't tweet. I want to talk about this for a second.
I'd love to. What's that?
I
you have
never
in your
heard of
hand
me
there,
either.
Tripp?
Because the one of the things that I love about you that a lot of people don't know from just working with you is Like just what a real and pleasant and compassionate and just you're just a good person.
Just an all-around
You're a
good
good
guy.
person. But part of why I know that is because you've talked to me about mistakes you've made in your life. You've talked to me about things you would have done differently. You don't carry yourself like the way you're describing we carry our favorite political figures.
Yeah.
Is that what you talk about in the book?
I do mention a lot of the things that I screwed up on there, and I do get into issues of faith and how I got back on track and that kind of thing. And it's not an autobiography. It is there's a difference between a memoir and an autobiography. A memoir is generally a part of your life or an experience.
Oh.
And an autobiography is, from birth to death.
Okay.
But in my case, this memoir is about my search for success and how I just strive to be a household name. Because I always thought that as a kid, I just figured that fame and fortune was my birthright, that I just knew I was going to be famous. I would be the guy that shows up at the reunion, oh, Paul Ryden's going to be there. This is going to be amazing. It'd be like Bob Costas or Tom
How did you
Hanks.
get that way?
My mom had a TV show in San Jose, and I got to hang around the studio.
Really?
A lot. Yeah. Yeah. It was
What
a
was
lot
the
of fun.
TV show?
It was called The Lou Ryden Show.
I'm talking with Rita Shaw, and you all know her from The Ghost of Mrs. Muir.
I didn't know this. Your mom
You
was a
didn't know that?
television
I
personality?
thought you knew that.
No,
Yeah,
I did
and
not
I get
know
to
that.
hang around, and I would follow her around on various interviews she would go on.
Okay.
And I got to meet all these famous people. I did an interview with a member of the Singing King family. They were on. They were like the Osmonds, sort of. They were just a big.
They were just
family.
lesser known.
No,
than
they were.
the Osmonds.
They were very well known in the '60s.
The Kingsmen?
No, the King family. They had a show on ABC.
Yeah, the King family was very influential in the 60s.
And not Martin Luther King Jr. No, the King family. They were singers, and
Okay.
they were great. But she thought it'd be.
I'll
really,
be the judge of that.
She thought it'd be really cute if, when they came to town, that I would interview the kid who was my age, boy to boy.
Okay.
And air that. And I've got a picture of it, but of all the film and tape that I've got of her, I don't have that. I would love to have a copy of that.
So that's how you kind of brushed against being
Yeah.
a personality.
I think so.
And then somehow you found yourself as a news reporter, a sports reporter.
Yeah, I mean, some of us are just wired that way. I can't imagine having a desk job or anything like that. I've always just enjoyed, going out and creating and that kind of thing. And yeah, I wanted to be, as I say in the book, I opened up the book by saying I wanted to be a play-by-play announcer in the worst way. And that's pretty much how I did it. Boom, there's a
There
rim
it was.
shot.
Rim shot.
So I wanted to do that. And then eventually I was taking journalism classes in school and ended up getting a job in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
The
rest is history.
But you did, I've seen interviews of you with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
I've seen interviews with you with tons of notable sports players from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So you did really well. You were successful. Why could you not feel successful?
Well, I felt successful in my own way. It's probably because I just didn't, you're always looking for that big network job or, walk down the street and everybody knows. I did a job with Kirk
Because
Douglas.
it's never actually enough.
Right. I did a thing with Kirk Douglas one time where he was the host of a documentary that I was writing on the Braves. And he and I would ride around in a little golf cart around the stadium, the old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, and every head turned and looked.
Right.
Every head. I mean, that's the
You
kind
wanted
of,
to know what that felt like.
Yeah, and I told Kirk, I think they're looking at me.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I've noticed this from talking to lots of people in various creative fields. It seems like the danger of trying to be successful is always moving the goalposts.
Yeah.
In fact,
maybe.
I've heard podcasts with people who are unquestionably famous, and they still don't feel like they've accomplished enough for themselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I feel like I've accomplished a lot. And as I was able to write it all down, and near the end of the book, I list some of the things I did, and I thought, yeah, I have had a pretty good and
that's
interesting
just
life.
it. I think what I'm learning, not until my mid 40s, and is that the reason, or at least one way to combat that sense of never being enough is just taking the time to actually be mindful about the experiences or the blessings, whatever you want to call it, the good. And I think naturally, as people who want to do good work, want to do good things, want to be noticed, and some of that's, I think, okay. Some of that's a natural desire to want to be great at something.
Yeah.
But then what happens is our brains hyper-focus on all those what-ifs, all those hypotheticals, and so then we're always measuring the current moment against some hypothetical, and then we're just never really thinking about I interviewed Michael Jordan, and who else? Who else have you interviewed?
Oh, people, a lot of your audience wouldn't even remember Robert Goulet, Casey Kasem.
I know Casey Kasem.
Yeah, okay. Gosh, I mean, anybody from, I can't even think off the top of my head. I mean,
and you
lots of
were on
people.
a major, you were in a major market, right? You were Green Bay?
Well, Green Bay, it was a medium-sized market.
Okay.
It was great for me because I got to do everything there, including shooting film.
Right.
And the thing is, when I was in college, I didn't want to learn how to shoot the sound camera because, well, that was for losers. I was going to be a star. I was going to be on that side of the camera, not this side. Well, I get to Green Bay and they say, you know how to shoot film, right? I go, yeah, I can do that. And so they showed me, they gave me a camera, and I was really lousy at it at first, but then I got better. And then some 30 years later, I'm going around the world with a camera as a one-man band, shooting videos, using my reporting background and my shooting and editing background to tell the stories of mission agencies all over the world. So that was a really
So
real
you're
blessing.
seeing it all come together,
Yeah.
and you have to be so grateful for that.
Oh, I am. Good grief.
But it's easy not to be. And I'm noticing that about myself. Sometimes I get down in the dumps because of things Tyler and I never did when we were together.
Yeah.
You know, we flirted with like a whole nother tier of comedic success. You know, we had our chance at submitting auditions to SNL, and we had reps and all those things. And what I'm doing when I go there is I'm not thinking about the fact that for 20 years, my job has been making funny things
yeah.
in exchange for money. And we have had notable videos. We have gotten to work with pretty successful talent, and most importantly, it's been really fun.
Yeah, exactly. I've always thought that's one of the number one things is just to use the gift you've been given,
Right.
and then have fun in the process. And if you can do that and support a family and do all those great things, you don't
Right.
need the rest.
You don't. It's getting kind of hot. I feel like we should get in the pool.
Let's do it.
I don't even have.
I've got
I may have-
trunks underneath here.
I may have a
call it
bathing suit in the car.
bathing suit. See, that's the thing. I've always called it a bathing suit, and my wife says, it's not a bathing suit. You sound like you're 100 years old. It's trunks. I said,
It's a bathing suit. What do you say,
Exactly.
Zach?
There you
Swimsuit
go.
probably is the best term. Trunk sounds
Probably.
like you're from the
I know.
1700s.
1700.
Don't forget, when you get a chance, delight yourself with a. That's my sponsor that one day I will approach about sponsoring this. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about them because I want them to know this is real. I really am endorsing your product.
I
Well,
think
won't.
I'm going to go out and get it
You should. Yeah.
today. You got it.
On three. We're going to say on three. 1, 2, 3. Paul, you have. I'm really puffing you up as an actor.
I know.
You deserve
Are
it.
you listening?
But man, have you played some kind of embarrassing roles? Let's not say embarrassing.
no, not embarrassing, because it's kind of hard to be
What are
embarrassed.
some of the
as-
funniest roles that you've played? not because they were supposed to be funny,
Right,
but
right, right.
because you know.
I was in a movie called Cat Run 2, which means there had to have been a Cat Run 1.
Right.
So
What was
I
it
looked-
about?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I was looking at I looked at Netflix to see Cat Run 1, and it opens with a scene of an orgy. And I thought, what am I getting into? So Cat Run 2, my lines were all fine. There was nothing. I was playing a senator, but I thought, why am I in this movie? And I was in New Orleans for a week shooting this thing, and to this day, I don't know why my character's in that movie.
I think I used that line in a video we made about you on my
Yes, you
old
did.
vlog. Do you remember what the line was? What was that line?
As chair of the Senate Committee on National Security, I know a hell of a lot.
Something like that.
Yeah, we're totally playing that clip. What are some other ones?
I was in a great movie, an Oscar-nominated movie called Hidden Figures.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic movie. I loved it.
What was your role?
I was a reporter.
Okay.
You know, of course. I was a reporter at Cape Canaveral. It was shot with a green screen about 20 minutes from my house. Shot it in Norcross. And it was really going well. And the director said to just ad-lib some stuff about, you see cars from all over the Southeast here to watch Alan Shepard's first trip into space and so on. And so I did that, and he was pleased. Then my line, I don't even remember what my scripted line was, but then I had to say a few other things. Well, fortunately, I remembered in the audition, I remembered what I had said. I had researched Alan Shepard's flight. I knew that it went up 116 miles in the air, that it was up there for half an hour.
What year?
1961. And then that it landed 300 miles off the coast of Florida. So I say,
it's a historic day here at Cape Canaveral, and here's what we can expect. Alan Shepard and Freedom 7 will be launched into space at an altitude of about 116 miles an hour.
And we go on with the rest of it. And when you think about it, an altitude of 116 miles an hour doesn't make a least bit of sense.
No.
It doesn't make any sense at all. And somehow, I was watching it in the theater, and it's full screen. I was so excited about that. Didn't even dawn on me until somebody mentioned it to me.
But you said it the way it was written.
No,
that was your mistake.
That was my mistake.
Oh my God!
But
And
nobody
it made the
caught it.
cut.
Yes, nobody picked it up. The technical director didn't.
Oh my
You'd think that a
gosh.
technical science guy would have picked that up, and they could have ADR'd it or something.
Oh my gosh!
But no. And it's in the IMDb goofs. So I made that anyway. And they lost out for the Oscar, and I'm convinced it was because of me. Naturally.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Cat Run 2, Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well, I've just been in a bunch of. One thing I remember, one of my favorite experiences was when I was part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Can you talk about that yet? Has that movie?
Yeah,
come out?
it's already been out. It was a TV show called She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and I played.
Not exactly Iron Man 4.
No. It was an 8-episode thing or whatever it was,
Right.
and I played a parole officer, which was fun. And after the first day, or around middle of the first day, the director pulled me aside, and she said, "Paul, come here." I said, "Yeah." I thought, "What did I do?" And she said, "You're an amazing actor." I thought, "Me?" I thought, "That's wow." So I got outside, called Vicky. "You won't believe what the director said to me." Yeah, so it was really weird. But on the third day of shooting, it was time for my coverage, my close-ups, and they had this big crane shot and was kind of moving in on me, and I had this line that I had to say, and I kept stumbling over this one particular word. It wasn't a hard word to say. It was just, I had a brain lock of some sort, and I couldn't remember this one word. And I kept saying, "Oh, sorry, can we do it again?" "Yep, no problem." Everybody was really good about it.
Right.
And finally, Tim Roth, who was in the scene with me, he was standing over in this jail cell, and he says, "Welcome to the club."
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I felt like
So you got some
yeah,
solidarity from
that's
the big name.
I find out that when I do these things,
And look, I get that feeling that you got when the producer complimented your
I know,
acting.
isn't that great?
Sometimes Hannah tells me that I'm like too complimentary of people, that they won't believe me because I'm always. But it's because I know how important it is as someone who's putting yourself out there creatively, whatever, acting, writing. Like, it's fuel.
Yeah.
Like, we're always wondering, did we just embarrass ourselves? Did we, at minimum, or did we just do something that wasn't noteworthy? It was just
right.
supported the thing,
Yeah.
Or did we do?
Well,
did we do something good?
the bad part of that is that if they give you a nice compliment, you do like Ted Knight as Ted Baxter on the Mary Tyler Moore Show many years ago, and he would say, "Thank you. Hope you mean it." It's like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally know that reference.
Yeah, and how many times have you done? How many times have you done a play or a
I've
a
done
video
no
or
plays ever.
Oh, you should. If you do some sort of performance, you've had this where people say, "Hey, Tripp, great job," and you're not sure whether they mean it or not.
I know.
So you just got to
I
start
know.
thinking, "Thank you." Just say thank you.
Thank
Because
you.
I know when I've done things on stage and I realize there were things I messed up or I could have done differently, and I hear people say, "Oh, it was a great job." I'll just have to believe them and just say thank you.
Right. I always overanalyze compliments, especially when I'm at an event. Like
Yeah,
if I'm hosting an event and
don't
I
do
do a
that.
performance, and someone says something when they pass me, I think, well, they passed by.
Yeah.
So like,
what else are they gonna say?
They would have felt rude not saying it.
Right.
The best recently, I had an event, and if I may toot my own horn, I feel like I did some of my best work on stage, and the client told me that people were coming up to them.
There you go. That's
saying,
good.
"Hey,
Yeah,
we
that's even
loved
better.
having Tripp." I'll believe that.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the I'm sure it's this way with plays or movies, and in my instance, it's emceeing events where you don't really hear anything, and you're just kind of like, well,
or at the end of the event, I did an event one time where the people really wanted me on this thing, and I was out of town, and I got here back just in time to do this thing, and it was hosting this big event at the stadium and all this other, and when it was all over, the organizer who had hired me and really wanted me said, "So, how do you think it went?" Don't you love when they do that?
Oh my
So, how
gosh.
do you think it went? Which means that really wasn't very good.
Does it? What does that mean?
I don't know. Why don't they just say that was really great? How'd you like it or something? I don't know. But we're just too sensitive.
So you've done everything from Cat Run 2 to Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
And of course, you've done a number of roles with us.
Yep.
What are your best memories doing Tripp and Tyler videos?
I like the ones
I've
that
got
have.
some.
I like the ones that have 17 million views. I like those.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite
Sure.
favorite times was when you guys said that you wanted me to be on this one particular episode, and I thought, okay, great. I've got a little scheduling conflict in the morning. Is it okay if I come in late? Hey, no problem. Perfect. And I thought, okay, that seems kind of weird, but all right. So I came in all dressed in the suit, ready to go, and you guys said, guess what? You're not really in the video. And we just want to do something really nice for you. And you gave me a paper sack, and I didn't know what was in it. I opened it, and it was tons of cash. I think it was like $3,000.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
And it wasn't
I was
enough.
flabbergasted. 2017.
The reason we did that in 2017, for those of you that weren't followers of my vlog at the time, is because we realized how much equity you lent us in our content that we didn't realize. I mean, we were Tripp and Tyler, right? And of course we were doing all these videos and getting all these views, and it hit us like, Paul's kind of like part of this. Like we can't do some of this without you, from like air travel in real life to some of the commercials to conference call in real life to video conference call in real life to email in real life. Our biggest hits would not be what they are without you. No. And we're like, we shouldn't just be paying Paul as this day rate actor, because you were part of the reason they were what they were. And so we thought, let's just trick him and let's just give him a bunch of cash. We're like, what can we afford? Like, what's the max we can afford without feeling like we're being irresponsible?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we're so grateful. You have played key roles in so much of what we've done. My favorite was your role as the pilot.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
You've been in the stuff people have seen. You've been in a lot of stuff people haven't seen because it was commercials that played.
One of the times, remember when you and I went out to Colorado Springs for Chick-fil-A?
That's right.
And we
was
did
it
this,
Colorado Springs?
Yeah, because we did this thing about every year Chick-fil-A was having these seminars back in the day, and near the end of the seminar, it was always a big deal to announce where the next seminar was going to be.
Right.
And so we tried to come up with creative ways to do that. So one year we came up with this idea that the answer is in this envelope, but it gets dropped on the floor and gets picked up by somebody else. The next thing you know, it's going all over the country, and it ends up in Colorado Springs.
Right.
And we have somehow it gets onto a truck with the grill of the truck, and it's stuck as it drives all the way back to Atlanta.
Right.
And it finally gets back there.
You know the part I'm thinking.
Your part you're thinking is where
It was so funny.
where I'm shooting out of as a
It got so absurd. I mean, it started absurd, like drop the envelope, and now we've got this little film about following an envelope that ends up in all these places. But at one point, you just fly away with it.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
You remember Shane's big ideas.
Oh, hang on a
Gotta find
second.
that.
Before we get to Shane's big idea, one thing, and it kind of ties into that too, is that when we did that editing, and I watched you edit the stuff we did from Colorado Springs, and I was so impressed by what you were able to do with, with keying, or not keying, but
Keyframing.
Well, keyframing, but
keying, chroma keying.
Yeah, chroma keying, and taking out little areas and being able to make it look like there was a road behind us and that kind of stuff. I thought that was so impressive.
Thanks.
And then when you edited Shane's big ideas, I laughed as hard as I've ever laughed.
It's the part
was
with
the most
the nuggets
absurd,
shooting out of the helicopter. Backyard!
It was hilarious. It was a guy at Chick-fil-A, a great guy named Shane. And
I'm still friends with Shane. If I
you
see
really?
him, we say hi.
Oh,
yeah,
he's a
Shane
great,
Benson.
Yeah, he's a great guy and
He is.
very willing to do anything to promote the brand. And we did this thing. It was a takeoff on all those awful record
corporate
offers.
videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
Oh
record
no, yeah, the
offers.
record commercials. Yeah.
Yeah. That was very
Shane's
funny.
big ideas.
Yeah, you got to run a clip of that.
I do, because he said something like, the premise was ways to attract customers to your store, and we were, of course, like you fly a helicopter over and drop out free nuggets, which was funny enough. But then I think we made a mistake in After Effects. We made a mistake in the animation, and it just ended up being funnier. That when the nuggets just shot out. Like
they didn't just
10
fall.
times the speed of gravity in a single stream. We're like, we're leaving that. That's gold.
That was hilarious.
Oh man,
that was so funny.
So, Paul, you've done some amazing stuff. You're funny. You've been in movies. You've been in TV shows. You've been in Tripp and Tyler videos. You've done
what else is
other
there?
stuff. You've been in. Now you're a reoccurring character in all of the St. Andre stuff with Aaron Tuning.
Oh yeah.
Which is amazing.
Love that.
But what are some stories that you tell in your book? What's your favorite story you tell in your book?
One of them was when I got on the air, and this is better told and heard than read, but I put it in the book anyway. It was when I was on the air one time in Green Bay. It was early in my career, about a year in. And I got on the air one night and I said, former American League President Joe Cronin said today he deliberately misled the Seattle public. And we go on to our story, and at the commercial break, the anchorman turns to me and he says, you said misled? I said, that's what it says right here in the script. I should know. I read it. M-I-S-L-E-D.
We're about to get a nugget dropped.
Right in the middle of the story. There's that helicopter.
So you said...
Yeah, so I said, we go to the commercial break and the anchorman says, you said misled. And I said, that's what it says right here on the script. I should know. I wrote it, M-I-S-L-E-D, misled. And he says, don't you mean misled? I thought, oh, yeah. I thought it sounded like a much better word. We really misled them.
But what's the boner story?
I was on the air in Louisville in 1979. It was 78 or 79. I think it was 78. And I was anchoring the sports. I was doing the weekends there. And we were running highlights of the Dodgers-Reds game. And
what year?
That was 78, April 78. And Lee Lacy in right field comes up with an error. He makes an error. And so I'm doing the highlights and say, Lee Lacy comes up with this boner in right. And then this image got into my head, and I thought, I started to laugh. And I laughed all the way through the stupid newscast. And that was the second time I'd done that. I did it in Green Bay, too, and got reprimanded severely by the news director. But on this one, nobody said anything. But
You did it on
hilarious.
purpose the second time?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I would never laugh on purpose.
Was that a word that was just more commonly used in that context? That it would just come out?
Yeah, it's a
so naturally?
mistake. Yeah, it's a mistake. It's an error, a boner, a muff, a goof.
I think we have this in common. One of my guilty pleasures is watching news bloopers on YouTube.
Oh yeah, me too. I love those. Oh yeah, I've heard of so many like the Soviet who defecated to the West.
Do you remember the one? I saw this with you.
Oh no.
Where they're doing a serious story about some criminal who's been finally captured, and when they pull up his mugshot,
it's a hamster.
It's like a gopher.
It's a hamster, little hamster. That is the funniest one I've ever seen.
She's like, I think that was a mistake. But my all-time favorite, I don't know why this is so funny to me. Maybe it's because it's, especially at the time, it was so controversial. But there was a report on a group who summited Mount Everest. And she said, Mark Lansing summited Mount Everest last week, and he's gay. He's blind, and, and I don't know why that's such a funny mistake.
Because, like, why would she say that?
Why would she say it? And, like, what an actually great accomplishment. A blind guy climbs Mount Everest, and you ruined it. You ruined his moment to be talked about on the air. Oh, man. What is the main takeaway that you want people to have from your book?
I know that everybody has dreams. You know, everybody's got goals and stuff, and they sometimes feel like we were talking about earlier that we just don't feel like we've measured up or made it or whatever. But that no matter...
It must be hard for you to feel that in your saltwater pool in your new house with zoysia everywhere, with 3 backyards and
we're living
a really fun slide.
I feel like we're living on a resort, but anyway.
Anyway.
I want them to be entertained. I want them to get a few laughs, but I also want them to be inspired that they can, overcome things or, be the person that God's created them to be.
I think that's so important. I'm so glad you wrote this book because I have conversations. It feels like weekly. It actually feels like any time I meet a new person who's trying to do something in film or...
Yeah.
It's usually film because that's the world I live in, but music is another one.
Mm-hmm.
If the conversation gets real at all, it quickly becomes about what I haven't done yet and how I feel about myself as a result.
Yeah.
Or there's like some excuses like, well, I always wanted to be this, but I had kids and I moved here. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like I used to live in LA, but we had a kid. And I feel myself trying to make an excuse for being a suburban dad.
Yeah.
Who's really at this point just trying to do something that's enjoyable at all so that I can provide for my family and live the life I actually want outside of work.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have to apologize for that because as soon as someone finds out you're an actor or a filmmaker, it feels like there's this burden to be impressive.
Right. And success looks different for everybody. And that's the subtitle of my book is my search for, what I learned in my search for TV stardom. I learned there were a lot of interesting things happened along the way, and I became successful, but not in the way I thought I would.
Right.
And I ended up, traveling the world, telling the stories, of what God's up to around the world. I thought that's pretty significant, and to meet incredible people doing incredible work in Africa, it was just mind blowing. And I thought, had I just stuck to this one narrow vision of success, I never would have gotten to do that.
So maybe the takeaway is, if I may tell you what the takeaway of your book
Please
should be.
do.
But as I hear you tell about your story, the takeaway from me, I should say, is it's a reminder to be more open-minded about whatever the path ends up being compared to what the idealistic version that I had in my head at 25.
Yeah.
And being really grateful of all of the good and the adventure and even the failures and the embarrassments along the way, because does it really happen for anyone? Does the creative dream, does the picture of success, is that really what anyone ever ends up getting? And if they do you still run the risk of accidentally fulfilling a dream that you had when you were 25 and didn't even know what you actually wanted, only to find out, wait, I got here, but now that I'm here, I'm a different person. I don't want this.
Or you get to that point and you say, okay, like there's an old Peggy Lee song called "Is That All There Is?" So that's it.
She did something other than rock around the Christmas tree?
That was Brenda Lee.
Oh, okay.
You're so young.
I don't know.
Such a child.
Do you know who either are, Zach? Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Brenda Lee.
Yeah. Anyway, so success looks different, and
another thing I was going to say, if I may interrupt you as
Please
you
do.
conclude your point, I don't think it's this way for every occupation. I don't think when you say, I'm a marketing director at so-and-so tech company, I don't think there's baggage with that of any. I don't think that person has to say that and assuming the person is comparing them to any specific level of fame and success as when you say, I'm an actor.
Well, maybe, but maybe within their industry, if they talk to people within their industry, maybe they are comparing them.
In the industry, right.
Yeah,
But at
but
a normal
not
party,
for the general public, no.
Right, and that's the curse of being in the creative field, is people associate creativity with art, with fame.
You know, one of the things, getting back to it, one of the things that I write about in the book too is a letter that I wrote to myself when I was 14.
Really?
And it was January of 1968, and I wrote about all the things that I was going through, what TV shows I was watching, who I was trying to date, and who my friends were, what we were in a little band and all that other stuff, and then on the back of it I said, do not open until January 1979, and then I put it away and completely forgot about it until many years later. I was back about in 1984 or something. I was back on vacation to see the folks, and I found this thing, and I was able to look through it. And one of the things in there was mostly, it talked about I wanted to be a disc jockey or a sports writer, but mostly said I want to be known. And then it said I want to be the best servant of God that I could be. And I thought, wow, this lofty goals for a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah, but and sometimes I look back on that note and I go, okay, well, some of it I did.
Okay, so I got to ask you this, because I ask all of my guests that it makes sense to ask. One parenting tip, one piece of advice that now looking back, raising a child from
Lindsay,
birth,
who was an amazing artist.
She's incredible.
Yeah, she is.
Having made mistakes, having done things right.
Yeah.
One tip.
One tip, just one. Don't spit in their soup.
Is that a metaphor or is that a joke?
It's a metaphor
Okay.
for don't poo-poo their dreams.
Oh.
Encourage them. Have fun. Listen. Get into their world. Let them.
Do you saying that because you feel like you spit in Lindsay's soup, or because you're
I'm
glad
sure
you did
sometimes I have. I'm sure. Always unintentionally. I never meant to say anything wrong, but we make mistakes for sure.
Paul, is there anything that you wanted to say on this podcast that I haven't given you a chance to say? What are you going to be like, I wish we had said this, or wish I'd said this?
I wish you'd gone to Amazon.com and bought my book. I never heard of me either.
I think they will. I think you will get at least. I'm not going to make a promise. At least 6. You'll get at least 6 book purchases off of this.
1, 2. Zach, you're in.
2.
Okay.
Hannah,
the 3 kids.
The 3 kids. It'll go in my box of stuff you should know about stuffs in my basement.
Yeah, well.
No, I'm very proud of you for writing the book. It's a lot of people aspire to write a book. A few people do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it took me a long time. I started in 2013, and I would just work at it a little bit, and I'd send it to some people. Hey, this is really good. And I think, then I'd stop. And then, I think I sent a little bit of it to you.
You did.
And then I would just off and on, and then new things would happen that I could add to the book. Oh, here they are now. They've caught us.
Can I get a shot of you doing a cannonball before we leave?
Yes.
If you do a cannonball, I will buy your book. I'll buy 3 copies of your book before I leave.
Oh, excellent.
If you do a great cannonball.
And if I do an okay cannonball?
That's got to be great.
Okay, I'll do my best.
If it's an okay, I'll buy 1.
Watch, I'll end up hitting the floor and getting paralyzed. But it'd be worth 3 sales.